Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. Build those relationships. Man, oh man, that is some sales advice that you have heard, but I bet that you're doing it not the right way. I'm here with someone to help you learn the right way and execute it the right way. Janice Porter of janiceporter.com. Welcome to the Selling Show.
Thanks so much, David. It's my pleasure to be here. I appreciate it.
Now, we do talk a lot in the world of sales about, hey, you know what you do? Build some relationships with those prospects and then go sell them something.
Right.
No one talks about what that really means. So take us back to third grade, Relationships 101. What is your philosophy and approach to genuine relationship building that at some later point will produce lots of beautiful prospects and clients?
I think probably the two words that come to mind for me are curiosity and listening. So just to break those down, I am a naturally curious person. I don't know if everybody is, but maybe the people in sales hopefully are, because you need to be curious. You need to ask lots of questions and never assume anything when you're, starting to get to know somebody. And the more you ask, the more I have this thing where I feel like if I've talked to someone for 5 minutes, I can get their life story. My husband, on the other hand, can play 4 hours of golf with somebody that he got hooked up with, at the starting tee. And I'll say, oh, well, where are they from? And what did they do? And he says, Janice, we were playing golf. I have no idea. Right. So it's just the curiosity factor that would make the difference. And secondly, of course, when you're asking questions, listen to the answers, for clues so that you can build a relationship around what that person is interested in.
Now, I know that one of your platforms and one of your areas of expertise is to do some of this relationship building on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Sadly, and I know you know this and you teach and preach this to your clients all the time, LinkedIn is plagued with what I call the connect and spam crowd. It's like, hey, David, I'd like to get to know you and buy my thing and give me your email address and come to my next, event or webinar. And this connect and spam is so prevalent that I think a lot of executives, a lot of entrepreneurs, they're obviously turned off when they receive that. And they're afraid that if they use LinkedIn for relationship building, that they themselves will come across that way. Help us get rid of that horrible connect and spam mindset. What are some ways to look at LinkedIn with fresh eyes, with some of that ethos of curiosity, and give us the first couple of baby steps to start doing that?
Well, I think, first of all, I would say that every social media platform is plagued with that. It just depends on, how you approach it and whether you're there for the right reasons, number one. And so if LinkedIn, yes, is definitely the business platform, and we'd like to keep it that way, thank you very much. But because some of the other more popular platforms are making it harder for people to be seen, they're all moving over to LinkedIn. And so what's happening is people are coming to LinkedIn and not having a clue of the etiquette on the profile, right? On the platform. So first of all, I think it's important to have a fully optimized profile so that when you can tell if they're paying attention or not and doing the right thing, if they're not, or if they are picking up on the smaller details on your profile. So for example, I always say the very first impression comes from the top above the fold, the top part of your profile. But if you really want to start to build a relationship with somebody, pay attention to the things below the fold. Pay attention to what their interests are, what they volunteer to do, what organizations they belong to, even what school they went to, because that can start a conversation around common interests. So I could talk for a long time about this one thing in the sense that, okay, that's you going out, But people coming in who are spamming you, you've got options. You can ignore them. You can report them if you want to go that far. And you can also, if you think there's some intrigue there, you can go back to them and you can say, did you really look at my profile? So you can play around and have fun with it too. And again, you have to have time to do that. But, there's ways to turn people from a negative to a positive.
For sure. Now, I know that this is an area where especially a lot of professionals, a lot of experts, a lot of coaches, consultants, business book authors, you look at their LinkedIn profile, and for that matter, you look at their website or you look at their homepage, and it's what I call I, me, my, disease, syndrome. Yes. So we look at, I do this and my background and my favorite clients and my expertise, and people work with me and they want this and they want that. How do we take the focus off of ourselves, the I, me, and my syndrome, and how do we put the focus on being of service or having a connection-worthy profile? I often tell people, hey, you know what? Your website might be a disaster. You don't have the website person. At least you can fix your LinkedIn profile. And they turn to me and go, David, that sounds like a great idea. How do I fix my LinkedIn profile? I go, I don't know. Ask Janice. So how do we fix our LinkedIn profile so it's less I, me, and my focused?
I think the biggest part of the LinkedIn profile that speaks to is the about section. It used to be called the summary section. That's the biggest piece about you, so to speak. However, it's not really all about you. It is about how you serve. And that's the way I teach it. I teach it as a 3-part formula. And yes, it has to have a little bit about you. And I call the first thing in your LinkedIn profile or LinkedIn about section the hook. So there's where the curiosity piece comes. Say something that will make people curious, because you only get 4 lines before they hit the see more button. So you don't see much. So make that the curiosity piece. And then say a little bit about you that shows your personality, that shows the type of, business that you're about and what you're passionate about. But the majority of that piece, which by the way is 2,600 characters, so it is the biggest piece there, is really turn that into what I call client facing. So it's about how I serve you. So talk to the pain points, talk to the solutions or the challenges or the solutions that you bring to those people. So you want to be able to read that section and say, oh my God, that person's talking about me. I need their help.
Gotcha. And then what are some do's and don'ts? Like a lot of times people will say, hey, if this is something that's of interest to you, book a call with me. They go right from, you read my profile to let's jump on a call where I can sell you something. And I think maybe a few years ago, the assumption was it's a getting to know you chat. I think today the assumption is, oh my God, it's a sales call. So what do you think about putting kind of a very forward, direct call to action, book a call with me, or, let's talk. That's another popular one. If this speaks to you, let's talk. Is that too direct or is that appropriate?
Well, I don't think it's too direct in that it's a business platform. And so we can get to the heart of business if we do it the right way. I usually say something like, let's start the conversation. So it means I'm not here to sell you. I just want to find out more about you and see if there is a fit. That's because I'm about building the relationship. I want people to feel as though in that first conversation, they're getting to know me in person, whether it's on Zoom or in person.
Yeah.
But that they're getting to know a bit about my style and about my passion for what I do, but in context of them.
Yes. And then how do you make that bridge from the initial connection? Let's say they accept it. Yeah. What should that first message or that first request or that first observation be if it's not going to be the old connect and spam routine? How do we sort of get things rolling, get things warmed up?
That's a great question because, first of all, a lot of people will get that inbound connection request and they'll just hit connect. And I always tell people never to do that, but to always go to the person's profile and just check out if it's really worthwhile for you two to connect. So once somebody accepts your invitation to connect, And by the way, that should not be a big, long thing. It should just be enough to gain some curiosity and why you might be reaching out to connect. And then when they do connect, your first message to them, which is I call the thank you message, is thank you for accepting my connection. And then maybe one type of question that shows that you read their profile below the fold, right? I see that you went to University of Michigan. Hey, I'm in Canada, but I know they're a great football team. Did you follow the football team? Something that's completely not work connected. Something about, it may sound corny, but the weather. You live in Minnesota. I have a lot of people I seem to know in Minnesota. I don't know why, but I see you're in Minnesota. That must be, I don't know. I couldn't live with winter for 9-10 months at all. Is that what it's really like there? It may seem trite, but honestly, I'm coming from the heart when I'm saying whatever I'm saying. So I don't know. That's my time.
Yes, I know. Terrific episode here, but have you seen our latest web training? Oh my goodness, pop over there right now, or as soon as you're done listening to this episode, it's doitmarketing.com/webinar. See you over there. Back to the good stuff. Well, this also, of course, translates into the real world, which is the second big area of your expertise, which is networking in general.
Your favorite thing.
It's actually not my favorite thing, which we'll get to in a moment. That's one of the fun premises of our connection, is that I let out a secret that I just don't like networking. But, in networking, we would call that small talk. And I think there's two kinds of small talk, which I think is what you're getting at. There's the kind that is obviously surface level, where it does not come from a genuine place of curiosity and relationship building and interest, but it just comes out of, okay, let's get the small talk over and then we'll talk business, in 2 minutes from now. Because the LinkedIn mechanism, it's not person to person, it's usually typed out in a message. How do we really distinguish the real effective sort of door opening kind of comment that is easy to answer, easy to respond to, maybe a little bit of fun, a little bit of humor? How do we distinguish that from kind of the surface level small talk that they're like, I'm not even going to answer this person?
That's a really good question, because I work a lot on my gut. And, most of the time I'm right. The odd time I'm not. Of course, I'm not perfect. But if I've done my homework on that person's profile, and if I'm curious beyond that, I might look at their website and I might wonder, why are they wanting to connect with me? It doesn't seem like we have anything in common, or we have a lot in common and I'd really like to talk to this person. Or third piece would be, this isn't really this person writing that message. This is somebody else, or it's a, third party bot or whatever. And so I've done that a couple of times. I've responded by saying, is this really a person or is this a third-party tool? Because I'd really prefer to talk to a person. And sometimes they'll message me back and say, no, it's me.
Right.
The conversation really starts.
Well, I think you put your finger on something, and people want to write this down for sure. Am I hearing you right, Janice, that if I have a quote unquote standard LinkedIn message, and all I'm doing is I'm copying and pasting that to every single person, number one, that comes across as spammy, and it comes across as that surface level, because clearly I spent zero time researching this person and tailoring the message to who they are and what I see on their profile.
Totally. Just, again, a gut feeling from me. But, I don't know about you, but in fact, I had one again today. I have people that reach out to me and ask me if they think that this person is a great guest for my podcast. And then they give me the blurb about that person. And the last one I got said that this guy was a mold expert for your homes and getting the mold out of your homes. I'm like, dude, did you read or listen to my podcast? And so I sent this guy a message back, but you know what? I'm so frustrated by that, because it's the second time this guy has done that I want to call the guy that he's promoting and say, who are you spending money with? Because this guy is clearly not working for you.
Right.
So it happens in all areas of the online world, right?
Oh, totally. For sure. And just so people know, Janice's podcast is called Relationships Rule. It is not called Trends in Modern Mold.
Thank you.
They probably had you mistaken for the host of Trends in Modern Mold.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. That's great.
So let's go a little bit further. So we find someone on LinkedIn, and am I right? Because the assumption that I'm making is I am going to be connecting with, intentionally befriending. In other words, I'm intentionally befriending someone that I think might benefit from my services or my products. So I'm doing it with a prospecting mindset, but with a networking come from.
Correct. And they could be a direct prospect, or they could be a referral partner, strategic partner type contact as well. And so whichever it is, yes, I'm reaching out with the goal of eventually, if there is a fit, taking them offline. So it depends on, one, your expertise in doing it, and two, your willingness to take the time to do it my way, the long way, relationship building way, and to get it from online to offline. And of course, offline means today still Zoom, perhaps, if we're not in the same city, or it could be a coffee date, whatever.
Right. But I think what you're getting at is to get them off of the LinkedIn platform and take that to an email relationship or a Zoom or a phone call or something like that. What are some nuances of, like, when do you know that you're ready to take someone off of the LinkedIn platform and say, hey, let's book a coffee chat, or you mind if I email you a resource that might be helpful? Or how do you know when to make that transition?
Well, it's funny because sometimes I think I know, and sometimes I just go, hey, I don't know this person, so I'm going to do it now. And I've got nothing to lose, really, except that my reputation, of course, is important. So it might be when, you get to the point that they say to you, so tell me about what you do, or they have a question for me. And I might say, well, it would be so much easier if I could show you. Would you be open to a Zoom call about that? Maybe like that. Or, I've sent them something of interest, or I've invited them to a networking event online or something like that. And then it takes them off. Sometimes I just ask, and I just get a sense of whether they're ready or not,
Yeah.
And sometimes it's about the time frame that it takes for that conversation to happen. And so one of the things that I think and that I teach my clients to do is, when you do your outreach, and maybe you've done an advanced search, you want to, find people in a certain geographic area, or you want to find people in a certain vertical market, then when you've narrowed that search down and start to reach out to people, you need to look to see if they're actually active on LinkedIn. And that, you can do that. So if they haven't been on there for 90 days or longer, then will they see your connection request? Probably not. So that's another factor.
So if you're connected with someone, almost always they reveal their email address. Would you take that initial connection, if it's been a good number of days or weeks, and simply email them and say something like, hey, Barbara, I'm following up on our LinkedIn conversation, and you kind of presumptively take the conversation to email, or is that too forward?
No, I don't think it's too forward, but no, I wouldn't do that. And I would just, if they haven't responded to me, because I'm thinking they're not using LinkedIn, but how important, there's enough people out there. Do I need to, unless I really badly want to speak to that person? No, I probably wouldn't.
Okay. Great answer. I'm curious because there's a lot of record keeping here, right? If I'm opening conversations with 10, 15, 20 potential people at a time, do you have some kind of CRM or system where you keep track of who you're connecting with and what stage that conversation is in?
That's a great question, because I just have gone through that panic on Facebook, because on Facebook, you can quickly respond to people and there are all these things, these posts are, up, and it's like, oh my God, I can't keep track. On LinkedIn, I don't have any fancy CRM system, but I'm not saying you shouldn't, by the way, it's probably better, but I've tried them in the past and they just give me one more hole to go down and have to learn another platform that I don't want to learn. But I do go and review my messages in LinkedIn. And every once in a while I'll see, oh my goodness, that person never did respond, because you get certain numbers of things. So I can withdraw my invitation, right, if I want to, or I can, circle back to somebody if I didn't hear from them for a while and see how they're doing. So no, I just take it as it is. Once I establish the relationship, then I put them in my address book. I usually send them a card and I start, with that.
Right. Okay. Wonderful. Let's talk about the larger world of online networking. And here's where I'm going to get the true confession that I promised earlier. You and I were chatting and I said, oh, Janice, I really hate networking. I've never been good at it. I never liked it. I use a lot of other strategies that I just choose not to use networking. And by the way, I choose not to use a lot of other things. I choose not to use sponsorships. I choose not to use press releases. I choose never to go to a trade show where I'm going to have a sponsor booth, because those things just don't resonate with me. I know there's other entrepreneurs that have massive success with all of those things, right? I've never sent a piece of direct mail. I've never picked up the phone and done a cold calling campaign. So the two strategies, again, this is for me, this is our initial conversation. The two strategies for me are speaking and online marketing. So we do a lot of webinars, we do a lot of things, with video, we do a lot of things online, and we do a lot of things with speaking, virtual speaking, Zoom, webinars, podcasting. Those are speaking strategies. You said, oh, David, people that don't like networking either misunderstand networking or they were taught all the wrong things, all the wrong ways, all the wrong things. And it feels slimy, pushy, salesy, and weird. It's like you're talking to a bad multi-level marketing person who's trying to get you into Amway. So zoom out to a planetary level, give us networking 101, and then let's talk a little bit about how to network in today's world using LinkedIn and maybe even using some other platforms and some other strategies. What does networking look like in 2022?
Well, I think other than the fact that it's online in a Zoom situation, whether it's you and I together or it's 25, 100 people on the screen that we separate into breakout rooms, I think that the premise is still the same. You either know how to talk to people or you don't. And it starts with how you introduce yourself. And I don't know, I've done the BNI route. I've done, these online networking groups. And what I tune out right away when people start telling me the long list of things that they do. And rather than, I love working with entrepreneurs and coaches and consultants, and this is, that have this problem or that, whatever, then you're actually narrowing it down and talking to your audience as opposed to, listing this long list of things that you do. And when it comes to being in a breakout room, for example, I like to take charge if I can, if they haven't preset who the people are that do the organizing or the timing or whatever, because number one, it gets me noticed. But number two, I don't need to talk about me in this place. I want them to shine because I'm going to get all their email addresses so I can follow up with them or I can connect on LinkedIn with them. And then I can, see if there's only the ones I want to, right? Because that's the key, whether it was 20 years ago or 15 years ago or now, is it's not about me, it's about you. So, I'm excited to hear about what you do or who you serve or what you do or where you're from, just because I'm curious, like I said at the very beginning. So I don't think it's changed. I think that there's just a lot more people out there that do it the wrong way.
Yeah. Let's say that we're at an online networking event and there might be 30, 40 people in the Zoom room. I sometimes see people that change their Zoom name. So if I were to change my Zoom name, it would say David Newman /doitmarketing.com /we help XYZ with problem ABC. And that's one way to kind of advertise what you do and kind of slap your business card on your forehead. Yeah. But there's also more subtle ways of, if that particular Zoom room is set for private chat, you can private chat with someone who looks interesting and say, Barbara, by the way, I'm really curious, what is that trophy that is on your bookshelf behind you? Do you sometimes do that kind of casual networking when you're in a larger event?
Yes, because that's really good to do, right? Because then you get to highlight, like you said, who you want to talk to. And sometimes what I see people doing, and this is cagey though, I think it's delicate, is that you're in the middle of those things and then you get a LinkedIn connection request from someone. So that's great, but they're not really paying attention, right? So it kind of is two different sides to that coin, I think, that you have to be careful.
Yeah. And when you're engaging in this kind of online networking or any variety of online networking, you're at an event, you're at a webinar, you're at a mixer of some kind, virtual. I mean, when you say, I want to make sure that it's the right kind of person, if all I have is a thumbnail on Zoom and someone's name, I don't really know unless they either say something or they're in the chat with something interesting. So let's say that they chat about something that you could really help them with. How do we make an approach to be helpful without seeming like we're pouncing on this poor person?
I think perhaps, I don't know if I would do it in the actual event. I think I might make a note and reach out to them afterwards and, do it privately then when I can focus and just ask them if they're open to a conversation. Maybe I would send them a hint or tip of it, like a free, something. Like,
right.
For example, I've done that with people where I've said, did you know that your LinkedIn headshot isn't showing because I'm not directly connected to you? And they may come back at me and say, oh, no, I didn't know that. Or they may say, yes, I did that on purpose. So it's whichever. The one who did it on purpose doesn't need my help, they think. And the one that didn't know, I would just show them how to fix it. And then now I'm either seen in their eyes as someone who can help them, and I did it for nothing, like easy, but things like that, just give them something, show value in what you do.
Holy smokes, so much value in this episode. Listen, if you are loving what you're hearing, feel free to download, subscribe, tell a friend, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to The Selling Show. Now, back to the interview. Now, I mentioned your podcast, which is great, and it's been super, super exciting to be on your show. Tell me about how the podcast hosting is a networking tool. And then similarly, share with us how podcast guesting can also be a networking tool. Obviously, you and I have played both roles. We just changed seats. I'm sure you're a guest on a lot of podcasts. And of course, you have guests on your show. How is that podcast a networking driver?
Oh, I think it's in so many ways. And I have to be honest, I have to really focus to keep that up. But what happens is I've met some amazingly interesting people through podcasting in both ways, but I love interviewing amazing people. And it broadens your horizon, right? That when you get into their world, and if the person that you interview is, and I try to make this happen, you can't make somebody do something, but if they are, above board and honest, and you say, all I'd ask you to do is just share it with your audience, and then I get a broader audience, and then vice versa. If I'm a guest on your podcast, I want to share it with everyone so they can, now that becomes a new audience for you, possible audience for you. And so if at the very least, that's what I would want to have happen. But what I also like to do is, stay connected with those people, the ones that we really hit it off. And I like to maybe share another podcast they might want to be a guest on if I think there's a fit, or, vice versa. And I've been introduced to a lot of interesting people from my podcast guests. And so that has just broadened the scope on and on and on. Today, I want to share something with you if I could. Do you know who Lewis Howes is? Lewis?
I do.
Okay. So he's a great podcaster, and I've followed his podcast for a long time. I was on his list. I got a message from him that said, hey, you're not opening my emails. You still want to be on my email list, right? And I don't open them because I get so many, but I scroll through and I look at who's going to be on his podcast, right? So I don't know if he'll get this message, but I sent him a message and I said, hey, this is what I do. I love your podcast. And by the way, I met somebody who knew you who was a guest on my podcast. And I sent him the link and I said, and if you ever are open to helping a budding podcaster, I would love to have you as a guest on my podcast. I just put it out there and see what happens. But I don't know why I said that, but just that the podcasting world, can open up so many doors in so many ways. And I always like to help other people with theirs as well.
Yes, totally. Now, the third leg of the Janice Porter stool of networking, connection building, relationship building, and kind of high integrity sales relationships is cards.
Yes.
Talk to me about cards. Like, you young kids, you may have to look this up. It's called paper. It comes in an envelope. It has a stamp on it, and it's got a message. You're not going to believe it. It's going to blow your mind, you kids. Tell us about a physical card in the mail, because I'll tell you, I think this is genius. If you look at what you get in your mailbox at your front door, it is 98% bills, flyers, ads, and crap. And an actual note from an actual human being, you might get one a month. If you're lucky, you get one a month. This is a way to stand out immediately. Tell us about how you got involved in the cards and how all of that works.
Oh, wow. I've been involved with this company that I'm an affiliate of this company for 14 years now, because it kind of hit me at, oh my goodness, I love sending cards. So that was me. I was a card sender. But as I started to use it and saw the convenience and the power that it can have as a marketing tool, and more importantly, an appreciation tool, that's when it really spoke to me. And I think the biggest thing that it does, and by the way, I know a lot of young people who are taking to it now too, because they realize that everything in their world is on their phone. And so there are times and there are people who need to have that physical, tangible touch to make the difference. Because what actually happens when you send someone a greeting card, which by the way, 100% of them get opened, okay, then it takes someone from their head to their heart. And the endorphins, the feeling good feeling happens when somebody actually had the time to do that. And by the way, if their photo is on the front, or their child or their grandchild, it's a slam dunk, okay? Because they'll never throw it away. And the mere fact that we can, for a very, very small time and money factor, do this and make somebody's day, and they brand the back of the cards with their business, not the front, the back. So this is, again, not the I thing. It's the you thing. You can actually build relationship that way and be remembered, so that people go, oh, I know who you need to talk to. And they pull that card and it's from you. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, you bring up a great point about if you're willing to put in the time. And I'm sure you get this question a lot from your clients. Between the LinkedIn research, the LinkedIn outreach, the sending the cards when appropriate, having guests on your podcast and being a guest on podcasts like this one. So again, thank you for being here. People say, Janice, I got a business to run. Janice, I'm a salesperson. Janice, I'm a consultant. How much time is this going to take? What's your answer to how much time is this going to take?
So my answer is that if you're serious about using LinkedIn as a tool for your business, as a lead generation tool, even though it's building relationships, but that's what, for me, it's all about. You can do that with half an hour a day, okay? Because you're doing the research, you're reaching out to people online and so on. The booking the appointments, that's part of how I do business. So I book appointments with people. So the more people I'm talking to, the better, right? And then the cards come from, by the way, could I get your mailing address, David? Right? And then that's how that starts. And so usually when I've built enough rapport, one way or the other with people, I get their mailing information very easily. Sometimes I've talked about the cards, but sometimes I haven't. But it's a great tool that I can then talk about after. Because really, if you're in business, you're always looking for a way to disrupt, to do something a little differently, to get yourself out there. And this is a super way to do it. And how long does that take? Well, we have an app now. You can do it all from your phone while you're watching the football game, okay? It's really that easy. So it doesn't take that long. You can actually send one card to many people at the same time because you've imported a list, you created the card, you matched the two, and you press send and you're done. I did all my Mother's Day cards that way.
Wow. How about that? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, as we're wrapping up, I've got two final questions for you. The final question is going to be, where can people get connected and stay connected to more Janice Porter brilliance? And we have some gifts and downloads. We'll put all that in the show notes for people. But before we get to that last question, if people were to take one core idea, one central idea from our talk today about networking, LinkedIn, relationship building, what do you hope that one core idea would be?
Show people you care. Say thank you. I don't care how you do it, but show people you care, whether they're your team members, whether they're prospects, because prospects are looking for you to stand out before they do business with you. And then from your clients, just show people you care. And I just am appalled about how many people don't. That would be my core.
Absolutely. Well, let's tell people where they can get more Janice Porter. Where can we send people? What should they be looking for? Websites, LinkedIn profile, downloads. What do we have for folks?
Well, absolutely. If anybody is listening to this and wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, please reach out and say that you heard me on David Newman's show. And secondly, my website, janiceporter.com. There are 2 free downloads there. One is a 16-point checklist for your LinkedIn, and the other is a 7-step ebook on having a successful business built through relationship. And both of those right now, you can't get to directly this particular week. Maybe by the time this airs, you will, but I'm just transitioning to a new website. So if anybody tries and can't, have them just email me and I'll happily send them the downloads, which is janice@janiceporter.com. And I'm always open to talking to people and seeing how I can best support them.
Brilliant. And we're going to have all of those links, all of those downloads at the show notes of this episode when you go to thesellingshow.com. And because Janice's website is sort of in flux as we record this, we will update those links so that you always have the latest and greatest access to the downloads, Janice on LinkedIn, Janice's email, all of that wonderfulness.
Find me pretty.
Well, Janice Porter, such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for stopping by, and so many gems. And people will need to re-listen. You need to back up the truck, re-listen to this whole episode again with pen and paper in hand. And Janice, this was really great to have you on.
It was my pleasure, David, and I feel honored to have been on your show. Thank you so much.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.